Okay. Sorry guys, I lost connection. Sorry. So I'll give a few minutes for a few people to jump on in here. If I lost you, I apologize. Sorry about that. For those of you who were in the session just a few seconds ago, I completely lost. I messed it up when I did this. So I'm just going to leave it alone. If it's the wrong way, please forgive me. Please just take the information. And I know it's kind of difficult to watch if the screen is sideways, but I apologize. So just not to waste any more time, I'd like to go on ahead and set some ground rules as well as open up with a prayer. So this is actually a Sudani prayer, and it reads, Our Father, it is your universe. It is your will. Let us be at peace. Let the souls of your people be cool. You, our Father, remove all evil from our path. And I chose that prayer because of everything that's going on in the world right now. I'm pretty sure most of you are aware of the rioting and the police brutality and just everything that's going on right now. And it's a very crazy time. And I know for a lot of us, especially as empaths, it is very emotionally and spiritually draining. And I just want to create a space for us to be able to come and talk about maybe the grief and the emotions associated to grief that we're having, while focusing on the zodiac signs and how each of these signs express their grief. So this conversation is for you guys. It's not just about me talking and, you guys listening to me. I want to hear from you. So what is it that you guys are feeling? I know that I am feeling very overwhelmed right now, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. Death is nothing new for me. It's nothing that I'm uncomfortable with or that I stay away from, but just seeing the violence and the amount of negative energy that is out there right now, regardless of what it's attached to, whether it's attached to frustration or, being tired of seeing Black people killed by the police and just all of those things. This is just a very overwhelming experience. For those of you guys who don't know, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I don't live very far from where the rioting took place on, I believe, Friday night. And luckily for us, it wasn't necessarily violent, but it was very aggressive. But other places around the country and around the world are seeing actual violence and people becoming injured and, their lives being threatened. So what are you guys feeling? I see someone here says extremely concerned about the loss of life and the callousness toward human life. I agree. I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Marlene. I know I'm sideways. I tried to fix it a few minutes ago and it completely ended the stream. And I don't want to do that again because I've already had a few technical issues. So again, I apologize if the screen is sideways. I'm just going to have to work past that right now. Okay, thank you. But yeah, I'm extremely concerned as well. And to be honest, I don't think that things are going to get better before they get worse. I believe that there is light and there is love out there, but in order for light and love to prevail, there has to be darkness. And I feel like this is bringing up the darkness that we have in us as humans and as spiritual beings having a human experience. And I feel as if this is going to allow for light to come through, but that darkness has to be exposed first. And you're saying that LA is really bad. I've seen some videos and some pictures, and I hope that if you're in LA, you're staying safe. But for me as a Pisces, since we're talking about the zodiac sign, as I said in the video that I posted about Pisces sign and grief, I'm a feeler. And a lot of times Pisces have a very spiritual nature, very esoteric nature. And I have to be honest, you guys, I've been having dreams and visions of very similar events taking place weeks before this happened. So I can't say that this is surprising to me, but it definitely is emotionally overwhelming and almost scary, because it's like, okay, God, why are you showing me these things? And the way that I'm expressing my grievance and my concern is to share, to try to insert as much information into the consciousness as possible. I see a couple comments came through. So what is your sign, and how do you feel as if you're processing, you know, seeing the grief that's on television and around the world, and how are you processing your personal grief? I'm going to read a few of these comments as you guys answer. My daughter lives and she's having to deal with all of this. Okay, I'm praying for your daughter. I pray for her safety. Feeling extremely overwhelmed, and I'm feeling compelled. Dijon, what are you feeling compelled to do? And that's another question. What can we do? What can we do? Marlene says, I can't watch. I don't blame you. You have to be very careful about what it is that you allow into your spiritual gates, which are your eyes, your ears, what comes out of your mouth, you know, what you're watching and partaking in. And you know what? I really think it's interesting that out of everything going on in the world right now, not saying these protests and riots and everything aren't a big deal and aren't important, but there's a lot going on in the world right now. We're still dealing with the coronavirus. It just seems like this is just something that's just, it's like an energy that's trying to be created or being perpetuated. The news here constantly shows the fires that were in downtown Atlanta. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I wasn't directly in that area, but like I said, I live very close to where all of that took place. And I'm not going to say it wasn't that bad because I wasn't there, but I was close enough to see that what was being shown on the news wasn't necessarily what was happening in real time. It's almost like it's being over sensationalized. Not saying or taking away from anything that's happening, but it just seems to me like there's an agenda to push fear and push just unrest on those that are watching. So you were right. Whoever said they can't watch, that may be very wise. And if you are watching, question what it is that you're seeing. I saw we had a few more comments. JW Music says, as a Scorpio, I am a water sign too. I feel the pain of the world. So you're an empath. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. What do you do to protect yourself empathically and spiritually when you're feeling all of this as a Scorpio? Let me refer to my notes real quick so we can dive in a little bit deeper into Scorpio, since you said that you're a Scorpio. Let's see. And I'm sorry that this video isn't a little bit more organized, that I don't have like an agenda or something. It's just, like I said, you guys, I'm just a little bit overwhelmed right now. Let's see, I need to go to the next page. So Scorpio, we're going to be talking about Scorpio and grief, because somebody says as a Scorpio and a water sign, they feel everything, and water signs are fluid. We can relate to everything because water is in everything. Go Scorpio. I have a question for you guys. Did you guys just watch, or did you all just watch your video for your sign, or did you watch some of the others to kind of learn about what the other signs experience when they're grieving? So Scorpio. All right, so do you have the competitive nature of a Scorpio, and do you view grief as something that must be overcome, or do you fall into the more emotional side of expressing your grief if you're a Scorpio? Hi Jenny, you're an Aquarius. Okay, so how are you handling things? How are you expressing your grief, and what type of support do you need when you're grieving, Jenny, the Aquarius? I saw one of my dear friend and sister, Tawana, is here. And she says, I'm a Scorpio and I'm a feeler as well. This is so sad. And that is so sad that I'm sorry, I'm trying to read sideways. Let me see. It's so sad that we as a people can't coincide in this universe. Human beings, we're all in this together. So why are we being so hateful to one another? I don't know. I think that's like the $100,000 question. It's like, our nature is to love, right? Our nature is to be loving. Our nature is to embrace one another. But I honestly think it's an energy. You can call it demonic, you can call it dark, you can call it whatever you want. I think it's an energy. And if you guys notice, it's spreading. It's spreading from one city to the next, to one country to the next. Just like the fear and the coronavirus spread. It's just spreading, and that is very strange to me. Has anybody else like noticed that? Is anybody else looking at this on a deeper level? Maybe it'll be easier for me to read the comments on the computer so I don't have to keep messing with this. Okay, here we go. Sorry guys, I'm trying to pull up your comments over here. All right, here we go. Hello to everyone that's just joining us. Thank you for your patience. JWB Music says, I try to think it through, but when I can't, I shut down, then I deal with it. I watch only rare astrologers. Okay. Dejan says, I'm feeling compelled to join the protests. I will not deface my city, but I have to do something. Me personally, I'm going to stop buying this week, and I'm trying to rally people to stop buying with me. Okay, I can understand that. Now, when you say that you're going to stop buying, what are you going to stop buying? Are you going to stop buying groceries, or are you going to stop buying from certain businesses? What are you going to stop buying? Scorpio feels the most grave in the zodiac sign. What do you mean by that? My moon sign is Pisces, and I'm very emotional. Okay. So what other signs are, Dejan, what's your sign? Did you say before? I'm sorry. Hatred is spreading through the world. It can be seen in most of the world leaders. I agree. I don't want this conversation to take a political turn, but I definitely can agree with what you're saying. I've been on for about 14 minutes, you guys, and I think I want to keep this right at about 30 minutes. So I appreciate you guys joining and participating in this conversation, and we'll be on for about another 15 minutes. Are there any questions that you guys had about the Zodiac series or funeral service related questions that you guys have? While we're here, we might as well open it up for questions. There's not many of us here today, and that's probably my fault. But for those of you that are here and that are taking the time out of your day to spend with me, I'd like to answer whatever questions you have to the best of my ability, especially as they pertain to the zodiac and grief signs. How do you feel like your zodiac sign plays a role in your everyday life? For me personally, I feel as a Pisces, I'm always searching for depth and meaning in things, much like Leos do. But I think for the Pisces, it's more on a spiritual level instead of trying to figure out the mechanics behind something, at least for me personally. When I'm grieving, the type of support that I need is a lot of, I'm a very touchy-feely person. I'm a person that loves hugs, and you know, I'll grab your hand, touch your shoulder. Physical contact does a lot for me. So in moments like this, it means a lot to me to be able to receive a hug, or to give a hug, or to offer physical affection to someone. When I don't have that, I tend to feel isolated, and I tend to feel alone. Conversation is important for me, as you could probably tell, hosting a conversation. And doing what I can to be of support to others is very important to me. What about you guys? Oh, also, I have a few books here that I felt might be helpful. If you guys notice, I placed a crystal, the name of a crystal, along with each sign. And a resource that's awesome for crystals is the Crystal Bible. Each of those stones can be found in this book. I'm not going to go over them in this video. If you guys are interested, just let me know, when I may go over them in a separate video for a continuation of the series. And if you are interested in learning more about your birth date, this is a very good book. I actually just got it yesterday, but I had heard a lot about it, and I'm glad I got it. It's called The Secret Language of Birthdays, and these are the gentlemen that penned it. It's not a cheap book, but it is very helpful. I read my sign and a few of the signs that I interact with, whether they're family or personal relationships, and it's pretty accurate, as well as there's a lot of information in the beginning of the book about how the zodiac sign was the zodiac system was established, and how each of the signs correlate with their representation. I see we have a few more comments. John, you're a Pisces. Okay, so Team Pisces. Okay. Rafaela Velasquez says, Taurus, I'm bullied, I'm scapegoated, so I go off alone and develop hobbies. It's lonely. When bad things are happening, it's scary to be that alone. I'm sorry that you are experiencing that level of loneliness, but I hope that this is a space where you feel as if you can express yourself and feel welcomed. So thank you for sharing. I know it's hard to be vulnerable sometimes, but I appreciate that honesty. Dijon says, I will stop buying from the large corporations. No grocery stores, no restaurants. I believe change requires sacrifice. I agree with you as well. I have been buying in bulk as far as groceries are concerned since the end of last year. And I'm glad that I have been doing that, because it's limited the amount of times I have to go out to restock on things. But I think that's a really good idea. I think in the world that we live in, one of the biggest forms of power that we have is our dollar. And I commend you for doing that. I really do. Okay. It looks like the chat is slowing down a little bit. Have about 10 more minutes. If you guys want another 10 minutes, let me know. If not, we can wrap things up. I appreciate you guys taking this time to spend with me right now. I'm sorry this is not as organized as I normally am and would like to have it, but as I expressed, I'm just kind of emotionally everywhere. It's shock. It's shock. It's the stage of grief where I talked about in that video, Grieving What We Knew, where it's like, this can't be the world that we live in. Like, this just can't be the world that we live in, because it just can't be it. Sacrifice is necessary. I agree, Nikki. I agree 100%. What are some other ways that we can make sacrifices? Because everybody can't say that I'm not going to go to the grocery store. Some people are dependent upon medications. Some people are on strict diets that require them to reload on groceries and produce and things like that on a regular basis. So what are some other sacrifices that we can make? I really think that what I'm going to sacrifice is social media, and it's for two reasons. One is because I want to be very careful about what I'm allowing into my gates, the ear gates, the eye gates, and my spiritual gates. The second reason is because it just seems to be bombarded with, I don't want to call it negative, because I don't think the protest and the rioting is negative. I think it's, in some cases, can be violent, and that is negative. But I feel like people are tired. People are exhausted. People are overwhelmed with emotions that they don't know how to process. And there's this group energy of anger. And it's very easy to get caught up in that if we're not careful. And people want to see justice prevail. People are tired. I mean, I'm tired of seeing young black men and black people get killed, period. Whether it's from police brutality or whether it's in our own neighborhoods. I don't know if I have shared it with you guys, but you may not know. I actually had to take a break from the funeral home a few years ago and actually go into counseling because I just was overwhelmed by seeing young black men in the funeral home constantly, like walking in and seeing 5 or 6 young men dead, from gang violence and from gun violence and from just various forms of violence. And it does something to you psychologically. And we're seeing this on the news constantly. And it does something to us psychologically. So I'm not surprised that people are acting out, but I don't know what the answer is. I don't think anyone does, but I don't know. I'm trying not to go off on a tangent. Yes, 10 more minutes. Your energy is comforting and reassuring. I don't mean to give you that burden. Oh, no. It's not a burden. And if we go over, we'll just go over. I'm not limited to 30 minutes. I just don't want to sit here rambling. And I really want you guys to lead the conversation. I'm just here to offer the space for us to talk because I know that there are not many outlets where people can just talk and express themselves freely as long as it's, positive, not even positive, but as long as it's respectful. I'm here to offer the space. So I'm not even limited to 10 minutes. I just don't want to subject you guys to listening to me ramble for on and on. Okay. Nikki, or I keep calling you Nikki, like they know you as Nikki, but Tawana says, my mind changes life and change is needed right now. We are in a pandemic and now unnecessary death. Yeah, 2020 is not playing with us. Excuse me, you guys. We're in a pandemic, and the thing that scares me, I don't know how much you guys know about the Spanish flu and the history of the Spanish flu, but what happened with the Spanish flu was the government needed to make money to finance the war that was going on at the time, or the war that they were going into at the time, if I'm not mistaken. So what they did was they started selling bonds, right? And in order to get people to buy the bonds, they would host these big parades. And one of the parades that was hosted was in Philadelphia, right? And what happened was a week or a couple days after the parade, everyone was sick again with the flu. And it came back like 100 times worse because people weren't social distancing, came out of quarantine and all of that. History repeats itself. And what I'm seeing on the news with the people protesting, even though they have masks on, some of them, it's like, I feel like there's a link missing. Like, okay, literally 2 weeks ago, we were all in the house. The whole country was in the house, quarantined. And now we're out in hundreds and thousands of people in close proximity. I'm not trying to say that they're trying to make the coronavirus or the virus worse, but something is just not adding up. And so when you mentioned the pandemic, that just brought that thought back to me. Okay. All right. But yeah, I don't know. Anybody else want to share their zodiac sign and how they're coping with things? Another book that I have that I suggest that everyone reads, I actually give these to people, is Chakra Healing. And in this book, it talks about the chakras, the energy systems of the body, and a lot of that can help us focus on like our behavior, our food and diet. It goes into meditations and yoga and crystals and essential oils and everything. But I think it's important right now that we are very aware of ourselves and our own energy. We have to be very careful not to absorb the energy that is being presented to us in various forms. Right now, you go outside in certain cities, there's a very angry energy. Being aware of our own energies, especially because I believe we're all experiencing some level of grief. I don't know what it's called. I don't know the psychological term for it, but it's like I can see someone else going through a situation and I can begin to internalize those feelings. We're watching people die on national television, and that is traumatic. I don't care whether you know that person, whether you don't know that person, whether that person has the same skin color as you. We're watching people murdered on social media and on television, and that is psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually traumatic. We have to be very aware that we are all in need of healing. Let me read a few more comments. I've always been alone and isolated. Now I'm watching everyone else do it. Okay. Good morning, flowers and friends. How are you? I love reading your comments. Thank you so much. Aquarius, what does it say? This is from Ken Green. All right, so let's go to Aquarius. Did you watch the video about Aquarius, Mr. Ken Green, or did you watch it? Let's see, Aquarius. So Aquariuses are very selective in nature. And when you form relationships and connections with others, it's very deep on a lot of levels. So when you actually lose that connection or lose those friendships due to death or them ending, it is a very traumatic experience for you. And you're the most selective out of the zodiacs. So you don't open up and confide to everybody. At least that's what I found in my research and observation. You may want to expound on that. What do you experience when you're grieving, and what type of support do you require or do you appreciate? From what I've observed, the best way to support an Aquarius that's grieving, and I'm going to read it directly from the blog that I wrote, is to give them their space. When they're ready, they'll come to you. Aquarians must feel strongly connected in order for them to open up and express their true thoughts and feelings. It is important that you do not try to force this connection. Instead, you simply express your thoughts in a non-invasive way. You cannot force a conversation with an Aquarius. When and only when they are ready, they'll talk. So it's best to give them space and time and let them take the lead. So does that resonate with who you are and what your personal experiences with grief and the support that you need are? And if not, how does it differ, and how can we support you in your grief? That's the question I want to ask. So there's 7 of us in this chat right now. If you would not mind sharing the support that you need right now, from the grief that we're all feeling collectively, and share your sign so that moving forward, when we're interacting with others, whether we know their sign or not, should we be privileged to learn it, we know how to support them. And as you guys are doing that, I'm just gonna catch up on the comments. Oh, you missed it. Okay, that's okay. It's still up. It's still up. You can watch it, Ken, but I just read it for you. So let me know if that resonates. Taurus here. I better write my Aquarius sister a note. Okay. Tawana says, my mother's an Aquarius and she does not handle death well and is still grieving for people that passed 20 years ago. So that sounds like unresolved grief to me, Tawana. Did you guys know that there are different types of grief? There isn't, grief in itself is an umbrella term, but there are different types of grief. You have unresolved grief, you have complicated grief, you have exaggerated grief, you have there's about 20 different types of grief that psychologists have agreed upon. So it may be beneficial to educate yourself on unresolved grief, and maybe that can help you communicate with her and help her work through some of what she may be holding on to and experiencing. Do you all take advantage of mental health resources if they're available to you? Has anyone in the chat done counseling or therapy or anything like that? I remember when my uncle died, I actually went to therapy. It wasn't grief therapy, but it helped me through my grieving process. Complicated grief happens when your grief is unacknowledged. In some cases, from what I understand, it can. I can Google the types of grief real quick, and we'll go over a few of them. We're not going to go over all of them, but we'll go over a few of them. Types of grief. If you Google types of grief, I just clicked on, I think, the third or fourth article, and it's from whatsyourgrief.com. And the types of grief that they have listed here are are prolonged, anticipatory, masked, disenfranchised, secondary, cumulative, inhibited, ambiguous, complicated, normal, traumatic, abbreviated, exaggerated, absent, and collective. So those are the types that they have. I'd like to focus on anticipatory grief for a second. And the way I understand it is that anticipatory grief is grief that you know that's going to happen, right? Like, let's say someone's diagnosed with cancer, or someone's been in a car accident and they're on life support, or just any type of grief when you know it's going to come. And what this website says is, as its name suggests, anticipatory grief is the reaction to a death you were able to anticipate, such as when an individual dies from a long-term illness. As soon as you accept and understand someone you love is going to die, you begin grieving. Grief that occurs preceding a loss. What the heck? My whole thing just shut off just now. What the heck? Okay, so basically it's a grief that you know is going to happen. My question is, do you all think that we are all in a stage of some sort of anticipatory grief? Because we are aware that we're all going to pass away at some time, in some place in time. So do you think that with the events that are happening now, with the virus and the rioting and the violence in the world, do you think that that has in some way heightened our level of anticipatory grief? And if so, why? And if not, why? I'm interested to know what you all think. My whole thing just shut down. I'm trying to get it back up. Grief. Here we go. Okay. Ken Green says, going through a divorce at 52, didn't see this coming. Hits me like a fast train. I am sorry for your loss and the ending of your marriage, and that is definitely a life event that can bring up some grief. Dejan says, have you had to provide service for COVID descendants? Not to my knowledge. Because I think there's this misconception that there's a special way to care for COVID decedents. In the funeral industry, as an embalmer and as a funeral director, you should treat every case as if they have the worst thing in the world. Now, a lot of times people get relaxed, and like with anything else, they don't follow protocol. But we treat everybody like they have the bubonic plague, because we honestly don't know what people pass away from. COVID is interesting because we now know, or we believe we know, what they passed away from. But to answer your question, not to my knowledge. Let's see. Sometimes I wish Narubu was real quick and just hit the planet Earth. So, okay. I can respect that. I don't agree with that, but I can definitely respect how you feel. Let's see. Okay, it came back up. Types of grief. What'syourgrief.com was the website that I was reading from, if anybody cares. And we are at 35 minutes, so as long as you guys want to stay on here, I'll be here. I probably won't go over an hour, but yeah. Nikki said I assume that your mom has unresolved grief, but I don't see that on here, so. But yeah, you may want to look into that. This has been a great series of videos. Enjoyed them all. Thank you, flowers and friends. I really enjoyed making these videos, and I felt as if it would be I don't want to say fun, but it would be a different approach to exploring grief. So that was my entire intent. And like I said, just because you're an Aquarius doesn't mean that you're only limited to expressing your grief, or that you have to relate to anything that I said in the video about expressing your grief. This was based on my research and observation of people that I know, and it has come out to be very accurate, and it also was a lot of intuitive guidance. I did therapy just this past summer. I thought I would need it more frequently, but it seems that just realizing my emotions and my ideas is enough for me to feel empowered, so to speak. You know what? I was really surprised when I did counseling as well, because I thought I went for the first time honestly not knowing what to expect, and it was one of the scariest things that I'd ever done, because it was extremely vulnerable, right? And after about 3 sessions, the therapist was like, well, if you don't feel as if you need to come back, maybe this is something you can do when you're having a major life event, or if something really serious happens. And I was like, hold up, you mean I don't have to come back for like years? And she was like, no. So I can totally relate to what you said about you thought you would have to do it for a longer time, because I honestly thought the same thing. What tools did you learn in counseling that are helping you to cope with what's going on now? For me, it was setting boundaries. I was a person that didn't know how to set or enforce boundaries in my life, right? And because of that, I was feeling a lot of emotions I didn't know how to process, and I didn't know why. But once I gained the tools to recognize what my boundaries were and how to set those boundaries and enforce them, it completely changed my life. So I think counseling and taking advantage of mental health resources is vital for everyone, especially now. Because again, going back to our conversation about the world events taking place, we're being traumatized. This is trauma. And the worst part is we're absorbing it subconsciously, so we may or may not even be aware of it. My dog is back here sleeping. My little cutie, my buddy. Well, it looks like we have every time I think we've slowed down, I get another comment. Let's see. Yes, there's a show called The Good Place, and there was a line, every human is a little bit sad because they know they're going to die. I agree. We all know we're going to die. And with that, I'll go ahead and begin to close up by saying that we all have a date that we cannot miss, that has been scheduled long before our creation. So I encourage and challenge each and every one of you to enjoy this moment, this day, this that we have right now, regardless of how dark it may seem or how scary things may seem. I challenge you to enjoy today. Be as positive as you can and give as much love as you can. Thank you guys for watching. As most of you know, my name is Joelle Simone Anthony. I'm also known as the Gray Woman. I thank you for spending your day with me, or this part of your day with me. I love each and every one of you, and thank you. Take care.